Welcome on in, soccer and football aficionados alike. It is edging a win here on Saturday, April 22nd. We have four more best bets for you this morning, but before we get into those bets, I have to introduce the face of the program. Please welcome in all knower of things soccer and football, world record holder in the longest TV thrown during a soccer match, and unrelated to that, Oxford fan, Ian Allen from Ian OUFC right here on YouTube. Ian, how you doing this morning?
Thank you for finally bringing up all my world records. You missed out the hot dog eating competition winner where what's the name of the hot dog guy that wins every time?
Chestnut. Joey Chestnut. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Who thought we'd start the show like that, folks? But yeah, look, last week was a horrible weekend for us on edging a win. For me, for Oxford United, football kind of broke me a bit last week. I ended up sending Matt a very petulant teenage message on Sunday saying, "I hate football" or something like that. But I've had my I've had a bit of recovery now and come through the other end, and the juices are flowing again, and I'm excited. I think we're going to have a good weekend of football. It's an exciting one for Oxford, and it's an exciting one for my adopted city of Sheffield, Matt, who have a big FA Cup semi-final against Manchester City.
Yeah, it's going to be, quite honestly, I'm really looking forward to this weekend in football and soccer alike. We'll get into everything around the league, not just this weekend, really, Ian. I think we have not only in some international games that we'll talk about in a bit, there's some good ones coming up, but also the MLS, the Open Cup has started, and now some of the bigger teams are going to be playing this week. So we'll get into all of that in just a little bit. We got a fun show lined up for everybody, and make sure you stick around to the end of the show where Ian's going to give his £1 parlay, which I think is over plus 2,000 odds at the moment. So we'll see how that goes. Ian's grimacing.
Yep.
We'll see how it goes. One of these days, it's going to hit. All right, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Go over to Ian OUFC and make sure you subscribe to his channel. But without further ado, sit back, relax, because we got three bets that you want to know for this weekend in soccer. So, Ian, start us off. What are your best three bets here in international soccer?
Yeah, so we're starting in the Premier League, starting with a 3 o'clock my time, 10 a.m. Your time over there, Matt. Brentford versus Aston Villa. Look, the Premier League, we're all gearing up. Everybody around the world is gearing up to this game in midweek, the main event, the title showdown of Man City versus Arsenal. But we've got a couple of good little hors d'oeuvres on the way, and this one should be a good one as well. Interesting clash. You've got two sides going for European football, one more than the other, I would say, at the moment. I mean, if this game was a few weeks ago, I would have had Brentford as favourites, but the Bees have just hit a bit of bad form at the wrong time, but Aston Villa have done the complete opposite. They are in red-hot form, and they are flying. I think they've won their last 5 Premier League games. That's the first time they've done that since the mid-90s. So they are going for a European place. They're going to see if they can try and sneak in the back door for a Champions League. I think that might be a bit of a stretch. But Brentford are a much better side when they play at home than they are away. I think 7 of their Premier League wins have come at home this season. So it isn't going to be a foregone conclusion that Aston Villa are just going to come here and roll Brentford over. But it's also a tale of 2 strikers in red-hot form. And as I say that, I realise I didn't give the bet. So there we go. Good start.
Over 2.5.
There we go. Yeah, we're going for over 2.5 goals. That was the segue I was waiting for, talking about the strikers. So, yeah, over 2.5 goals. And we think that these 2 guys are going to be on the score sheet as well, probably. You've got Ollie Watkins for Aston Villa. You've got Toney for Brentford. And you've got 2 sides that really are just going to go out for the win. They like to play pretty entertaining football. And I think you're going to see a pretty good game happening in about just under an hour's time.
Yeah, this should be a good game. In fact, I am totally on board with you. That is definitely a play on our member card this weekend. Now, you talk about 2 strikers in that matchup, Watkins and Toney, both 27. They're around their peak years. No disrespect to Brentford or Villa, but do you see either of them moving to maybe a better team, a top-tier team in the EPL or around Europe to maybe find a better team and hopefully win some championships with them?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? It always seems that as soon as one player has like a breakout year or a really good year, it's just going to be almost inevitable that they're not going to be able to keep hold of them, like these middle level kind of clubs like Brentford and Villa. So who would come in and take them? They're very kind of different players. You've got Ollie Watkins, who's a guy who likes to like run in behind and use his pace to get in behind the defensive line. Ivan Toney, a lot more of a target man, very powerful, strong, very tall, good in the air kind of player. I really can't see anybody outside of the Premier League clubs coming in for them. I just don't think that clubs like the clubs that can afford them really are going to be Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Bayern. I don't really see either one of those guys coming in for them. So you're looking at Premier League. Let's just run down some of the heavy hitters and think who would fit better where, really. Probably Ivan Toney, City, kind of a bit of a Haaland replacement role, probably be better at Man United as well. If Man United don't attract Harry Kane, maybe they can come and attract Ivan Toney. The flip side for Spurs, maybe if Kane gets sold, maybe Ivan Toney's the replacement. Chelsea probably need both of them and a bit more, to be honest. And then you got your sides like your Liverpools and Arsenals, and I think Ollie Watkins would be a better player for them. They like to use a lot of pace. They like to get in and attack quickly and transition. So I think Watkins would be a better signing for those guys. But there is another side that we will talk about later that do also have a lot of money, and that is Newcastle. So don't be shocked if they are a side that come in and take one of these strikers as well.
Yeah, and honestly, they're up there in the Premier League. So I know for many years we wouldn't consider that a top-tier team, but they're starting to make themselves look like that. So maybe we will see them. So over 2.5 there for Brentford, Aston Villa, or Villa as Ian likes to call them. And that's a good one to start us off.
You always call them Aston. No one calls them Aston.
That's because Aston Martin. That's because Aston Martin.
The villains.
That's a good start. I think that one hits. That did make our member card. That's how confident I feel about that one. Our second bet, we are going to look at La Liga. Real Madrid, Celtic, Vigo. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, Celta Vigo. Yeah, very good. So Real Madrid, Celta Vigo. That's an evening game for me, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going for Real Madrid -1 on the spread in this one. And when you're clutching your winnings after this Brentford Aston Villa game, maybe you can turn your attention to this one. We haven't looked at the Galacticos, Los Blancos in a few weeks now. We've not really spoken about Real Madrid since they lost to Barcelona, but they are the sort of side that this is the business end of the season, and that's where they tend to pick up form, and that's where they tend to be this kind of win machine that just churns out wins game after game after game. And we've also already seen that a little bit in Spain and in Europe. They absolutely destroyed Barcelona in the Copa del Rey, 4-0 in the second leg of that one. They continue to be the scourge of the English in the Champions League, knocking out every English side that comes their way. They'll see if they can do that against Man City. And they're finding a little, they're finding a little bit of form in La Liga as well. And it's a Celta Vigo side floundering a little bit in the middle of the table, not really much to play for. And I just see this Real Madrid side with so many options going forward and so much kind of pace and power. And you've got a man like Benzema who just scores goals for fun. I can just see this one being a very comfortable afternoon for Real Madrid where they get a nice big win on the board.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I don't mind the bet. Real Madrid is obviously a top-tier team, but it wasn't really a surprise this past week. Real Madrid, they beat a horrible Chelsea side. I won't even talk about Chelsea, but they're 9 points behind Barcelona in La Liga. My thought is, do you think that maybe they just rest all their guys in this one and keep their players fresh for the Spanish Cup and the Champions League semis, or how do you think that plays out?
Yeah, I mean that's sometimes the thinking in these cases where you've got guys that are competing or teams that are competing in multiple tournaments at this stage of the season. But you do see that a lot of these sides do just play their big players game after game. You don't see Guardiola messing with his side too much for Man City, and you don't really see Ancelotti changing too much. So I'll be surprised if they did change it, it's not like the backup players are bad, though. You've got a lot of striking options. If you don't play Benzema or Vinicius Junior, Rodrigo, you've still got like Valverde, Marcus Asensio to come in. Perfectly good and capable goal scorers and quality players all the way through this Real Madrid side, really. But also, as well, big game tonight in La Liga, or tomorrow in La Liga, Barcelona versus Atletico Madrid. Atletico Madrid are absolutely flying. I think they've won 5 or 6 games in a row now, and they could take that second spot away from Real Madrid. So Real Madrid won't want that to happen. They won't want to lose out of place to their city rivals. But also, Barca aren't looking great. They've got a big lead, but they're not looking great. And Real Madrid will just think if they can put a nice big win on the board, put some pressure on Barcelona, let's say they drop some points to Atleti tomorrow, all of a sudden that title race isn't necessarily over.
Yeah, and you're right. Barca isn't looking great. I think, and I'm trying to look it up real quick, but what they've struggled a bit, and it almost looked like they were going to drop points, I think, this past week. I'm not correct.
Well, I think it's two very disappointing draws they've had to two very mid sides, and it's really just been whilst their defense has been red hot, it's just been scoring goals. They've been very lackluster in front of goal. They don't. It's not like we talked about it before, and they're not a Barcelona of old where they'd go out and just smash teams 3-4, 5-0. They're very much more pragmatic, and I wouldn't say they're outright struggling. They're just going through a little bit of a dip, and it's a chance for the Madrid sides to close that gap.
Yeah, no, I like it, and I think I'm not gonna. They looked good against Chelsea. I'm gonna say that, but so does Southampton. So I don't know how much you can take into that.
Go on, you Saints.
Yeah. All right, that's a great second bet. We're going to go back to the Premier League, I think, with your third best bet. Little update, Fulham 2-1 over Leeds here, 84th minute. So
did you do a little cheeky over bet on that one, Matt?
I did do. I had over and Fulham, so that's both winning right now.
Nice. Well, as well, half-time 0-0, second half the goals have come.
Hell yeah. All right, so let's go back to the Premier League, and I believe this is going to be tomorrow, and it is with a team that you did mention, Newcastle and Tottenham. What do you like in this one?
Yeah, so this one, again, early one for you guys over there on Sunday. It's 9 a.m. kickoff, 2 p.m. over here. Over 2.5 goals in this one. Going back to a goals bet, you've got two sides. I think that both sides will score goals in this one. That's the main reason why I've gone for it. And it's pretty good value for the over goals. I really fancy Newcastle to win this game. So I was looking at do I back Newcastle to win on the money line? And I was just thinking Spurs are so unpredictable. I'm just going to go with the over on goals on that one just to be on the safe side. And as I said, there's not much difference in terms of the value between the two there. But again, two sides still going for Champions League places. Spurs, again, they just do remain this enigma. It'd be really difficult to see Tottenham breaking into that Champions League place, but they seem to then just find a few wins from somewhere, and all of a sudden the Champions League campaign is back on the rails for Spurs. But they were beaten last weekend by a really poor, well, not a poor Bournemouth side, but really poor defeat for Tottenham to lose at home to Bournemouth. And they do look like a real mess of a side, especially in defence. They're a bit all over the place at the moment. Newcastle, especially when they play at home at St James's Park, wanting to bounce back from that defeat on the road against Aston Villa last time out. They will really be hoping that they can put in a performance like they did against Manchester United, where they played fantastically and the crowd are just up for it and roar the side to victory. But it's that pace in the forward line, which I think is going to really worry Tottenham. Newcastle have got so many options going forward and so much speed where they can just put this Tottenham defence under pressure. And I think that's ultimately where the game's going to be won or lost. And both sides, again, need to go for the win. They can't just sit back and hope for a draw. You've got the likes of Brighton, you've got the likes of Villa breathing down their necks. So I think that we look at this one, as you've said many times in the past to me, Matt, both sides are probably going to score. So therefore, back the over. You're probably going to get a pretty, I wouldn't say a guaranteed win, but a good chance of getting the win on that one.
Yeah, so 1-1 draw is what I see after you say that.
Let's see if we can, maybe, and this is a shameless plug where I drop the title of the video in. Maybe we will edge a win on this one.
Oh, yeah, maybe we will. Listen, I like it. Newcastle can score. Tottenham, you think, should be able to score with some of their elite talent up there. sometimes they struggle. Hopefully not this week. But I did want to inform the viewers who might be new to soccer and may not know, but Newcastle United just got taken over by Saudi investors last year. They're now one of the richest clubs in the world. We won't get into the politics of that, but are we going to be seeing Newcastle competing for Premier Leagues and Champions League soon? And also, what does that do for soccer in England and Europe overall?
Yeah, it has caused a lot. I mean, it did cause a lot of controversy when it happened last year. I mean, it was a takeover that seems to have been on the cards for a long, long time. It finally went through last season, but just like most things, right? It's all a controversy, and then a few weeks later, the news dies down, and everybody just gets on with it. So there's not really too many people talking about it, but yeah, it's a huge change in dynamic for Newcastle United, a side that were floundering down the bottom, always kind of struggling to stay in the Premier League for the last, well, maybe since like the mid-90s was the last time they challenged up the top, and so it's a huge change for them. I do like the way they've gone about it, though. That Man City, when they got that money, everybody expected them to just instantly go and like dominate everything. But it did take Manchester City a few seasons to take that step from middle of the road Premier League side to all of a sudden one of the biggest sides in the world. And Man City had a very scattergun approach to like, oh, I want this guy, and they were bringing in players that were big names, but not necessarily good for the team. Whereas Newcastle have been a lot more cerebral with their process. Eddie Howe has done an amazing job, really, with the signings that he's made. Players that have just generally improved it, like Nick Pope, Kieran Trippier, an amazing signing, Dan Burn, Bruno Guimaraes, I don't think was on anyone's radar when they got him out of South America. But then he's also improved the players that were there. Some of these players that, like Joel Linton, Alan St-Maximan, Mikel Almiron, these guys were like, they're unrecognizable from the team that like Steve Bruce had a year ago. They're a completely different side, and it really is an exciting time to be a Newcastle United fan. And I really think that like if they can get Champions League, that will attract a whole new level of player that will come and like that will want to like take the money. And they're not playing at a low level. They're still going to be playing at a high level. And more importantly, Newcastle can then offer the wages that these players will want. But then it does also open up a problem for the other sides in England of how they compete. And are we going to end up in like 10 years' time where it's like all the big sides in the Premier League are just owned by countries?
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia, the Emirates.
Yeah.
And everybody else has got like a ton of money.
I could see that. Wouldn't it be like America to own Crystal Palace?
Well, you do have, I mean, that's the thing. You do have American money in the Premier League. I mean, you have American money with Man United and with Liverpool. But that just shows you that money pales in comparison to the money that Man City and now Newcastle can put in. It's a different ball game completely with this money that comes in from the Middle East.
It does. And honestly, if you want to give me a reason to hate Liverpool, it's because LeBron James owns part of Liverpool. So
Hey, he gets a free blue check mark on Twitter.
You saw that?
Yeah. I love it how it's basically just Elon Musk just being a troll.
I do too, yeah. All right, so hey, I love those three bets. I got them all bet myself. I think they're going to hit. We're going to go 3-0 on Ian's best three bets. But besides those three bets, there are some fantastic games going on around the world. What are you looking at? What are you paying attention to this weekend, Ian?
Yeah, I know it's not the hugest thing in the menu from your side of the pond, Matt, but I'm just going to touch on the FA Cup semi-finals. They are some big games over here, especially being someone that lives in Sheffield. You've really seen the kind of the FA Cup fever take over the city, or the one half of the city. This week, Manchester City versus Sheffield United. It looked in the FA Cup semi-final. The other one is Brighton, Man United. Look, you would think Man City are probably going to come through quite comfortably against Sheffield United, but you never know. They've got that hope. They've got that dream. It's still a great year for Sheffield United. They look like they're on the just about to get over the line to win promotion back into the Premier League as well, which is great. And hopefully, you never know. You never know. This is where the cup magic hopefully kicks in and they get a win. But tomorrow's semi-final could be a great game. Brighton versus Man United. most people will be looking, say, Man United because they're the bigger name, but Man United have been terrible lately. They've got an awful defence, as epitomised by how they were against Sevilla in midweek. Brighton having a great season could definitely take advantage of that one. So I would not be backing Man United in that one. But moving that to the side, the biggest games in the Premier League, let's just say Liverpool probably going to rack up an absolute basketball score. What's the equivalent? We say cricket score over here, so I don't know what your equivalent would be. Baseball score or something like a huge score against Nottingham Forest. I would expect that today. But the big one is this title decider, Man City versus Arsenal. Just interested, Matt. What are your thoughts on that one quickly?
Yeah, I think I honestly think after Arsenal's dropped a little here lately, I think Man City is just going to destroy him.
That seems to be the case, doesn't it? Arsenal doing their best to throw away this big lead.
Yeah.
Just a basket case of a game yesterday. And really, at full-time whistle went at the Emirates, silence. And that was really eerie thing. It was just a silence. Barely even a hum of round of applause or anything like that. It was just a stunned silence. But this is a huge game and all eyes are going to be on it. And I'm looking forward to it. And I would actually love it if Arsenal could come away. And
me too. I mean, I'm not rooting for that, but I think Man City is going to win that match. Yeah,
they're a winning machine. Yeah. They're a winning machine, and Haaland is unreal.
Yeah.
But then we'll just move over to France quickly. It's a kind of a best of the rest, really, because the title's gone. PSG have won it now. They beaten away all the competitors. But Lyon versus Marseille is still a pretty good game over there. But Germany does still have this exciting title race, Matt. Both sides messed up last weekend. You had Bayern Munich drop points, but they go away to Mainz. This today, not an easy game, but one you would still expect them to win. But they aren't looking great. They are looking flaky. But Borussia Dortmund never seem to be able to capitalize. They never take advantage of Bayern Munich's mistakes. Last weekend, you can't draw to Stuttgart. You cannot draw to Stuttgart when Bayern Munich dropped points. It was a shocking performance from Dortmund. But they have got Eintracht Frankfurt, which could be a difficult game for them, but both of those sides flying high at the top. We talked about the big game in Spain, Barcelona, Atletico Madrid. That one could be a classic game tomorrow evening, so make sure you check out that one. Italy, you've got Juventus, Napoli. Napoli are going to win the league. But that one's always a little bit of a spicy occasion in Italy on that one. Could be interesting. And I'm just going to talk on a couple of other European leagues and games we don't cover very often, but just a couple of big rivalry games. In Holland, I think you've got second versus third. You've got PSV Eindhoven versus Ajax in the Eredivisie. And in the Greek Super League, you've got Olympiakos versus AEK Athens. And the Greeks tend to take rivalries to a whole new level. So that one could be fun to watch just for the spectacle more than anything else.
Yeah, no, great matches. I'm looking forward to Man City, Arsenal, of course. I am disappointed in what Dortmund did last week because I really think that doesn't give us the title race we kind of wanted in Bundesliga. So
yeah, it would have got them level on points, or it would have given Dortmund a narrow lead, and it just would have made it so much more interesting. And it's just they do this all the time, where they get on the tails of Bayern Munich and then they just fall at the final hurdle.
Yeah. No, I agree. And you know what's disappointing? And it just seems like Man City, Bayern, Napoli, those and Real Madrid, it just seems like most years, those are the four teams that find a way to win as the season goes along. And whether they start, in the bottom half of the league after a couple of weeks, they always tend to just navigate forward and come out on top. So, I mean,
absolutely right. And again, just going back to the Premier League, I mean, this is the worrying thing for Arsenal is Man City. You've seen them do that where in the back end of seasons where they just churn out 9, 10, 11 wins in a row. You saw Liverpool literally 2 years in a row, Liverpool matched City all the way, lost by like a point or lost on goal difference. So they are just an insane winning machine.
Yeah.
And that's probably why it looks very ominous for Arsenal at the moment.
Yeah, and that's probably why a lot of us here in the States don't like them. We compare them to the Patriots, the Yankees, etc. So that is a great analysis of what's going on in the weeks ahead in international soccer. But Ian, you know what time it is. It is time for some American soccer. Yes.
Hey,
The
do you
MLS.
mean do you mean NFL?
Maybe. We'd get more viewers, I tell you that. All right, well, Ian, let's talk about the MLS and let's talk about our St. Louis SC team who, going into week 8 in the MLS, had lost 2 in a row and had not scored a goal for over 180 minutes. They hosted top seed in the East, Cincinnati, in week 8, and if there was ever a doubt, Ian, that this team was for real, I think we got our answer. They dismantled Cincinnati 5-1, scoring 3 goals in the first half and cruising to victory. And they're now back atop the Western Conference standings in first place. To put into perspective, I don't think anybody's actually looked at this. To put into perspective what this team has done across the league, here's some statistical categories. They are first in goals scored in the MLS with 20. They are first in points in the MLS with 18. They are first in wins in the MLS with 6. And they have the highest goal differential at plus 11 in the MLS. That is just absolutely unbelievable, Ian, for an expansion team. I mean, this is numbers that, equivalent would be like a League One going to the Premier League and putting up some wins.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we just watching the highlights back of that game, the goals they score, very impressive goals as well. I mean, there were a couple of questionable things from Cincinnati, but the wonderful goal. First 2 or 3 goals are great goals for St. Louis.
They
definitely deserved to win.
100%. And when Klaus gets involved, that's they seem to win. This week,
and he didn't even score.
He didn't even score, but he had a couple good flick-ons that created chances. So when he's involved, he didn't even score, and that's amazing. This week, St. Louis SC does go to Colorado, a team that has only scored 5 goals in 8 weeks. And 2 weeks ago, yes, we did take the over with them, but we won't take the over with them here. So hopefully we just add on to those statistical categories and continue winning. Now, before we get into week 9 of the MLS season, my over bet of the week and a couple of things, before we get into week 9 and my over bet of the week, there are a couple things that I did learn in week number 8. There are bad teams in the MLS, and there is 6 feet of shit, and then that's where you find Montreal. Okay, Montreal has a negative 14 goal differential just 8 weeks into this season. Stay far away from betting these guys, unlike I did last week. Thinking that they would put up goals at home. I mean, Ian, go ahead. Tell me.
In an unrelated comment, I was just about to secure a big edge in a win brand deal in the French Canadian quarter of Canada. So be careful what you say, Matt. Be careful what you say. Don't blow this deal for us.
6 feet of shit and then Montreal. That is where they are so bad. Speaking of teams though that aren't that bad, we learned Columbus is going to be in the mix of contending this season in the East, but New England is the team, in my opinion, to beat. Just watching Cincinnati lose to St. Louis SC and New England having a good game again last week. So I think that is a team that if you want to put a future bet on, it would have been much greater, 9 weeks ago, but I still think they're going to be deep into the playoffs. And really, will LAFC ever lose a match? They absolutely look unbeatable at the moment. I mean, there's a chance, Ian, that they could meet St. Louis SC in week 15 without a loss, which would be such a massive game if that does happen. But we'll see what happens with that. But with all that said, let's move into week number 9, and let's look at a couple intriguing matchups this week. Toronto-Philly looks like a fun matchup this week. Toronto could be at the top of the table in the East if they could win games. But they don't lose games either. 6 draws in 8 games this season. Should be a fun test again for Philly at home. And honestly, if Toronto can get a point out of this one on the road, I think they have to be considered a dark horse in the East with as many opportunities and draws that they've had. If they can just get over that hump of winning, they probably can be the contender. I'm also looking at Houston and Inter Miami. David Beckham's team has lost 5 straight after winning the first 2 games of the season. Ian, can you remember a time where David Beckham's team ever lost 5 straight?
Probably when he was on loan at Preston in the
Okay.
early part of his career, or probably when he was at LA Galaxy probably at some point. But it's very interesting you bring them up actually, because I was actually going to talk about that, because when a side, if that was in England and a side's doing so poorly, the manager would be under pressure. I don't know how much pressure Phil Neville is under, and also as well, he's David Beckham, one of David Beckham's best mates. So be very interesting to see if David Beckham makes a decision to get rid of him at any point.
Yeah, I don't think that happens. I understand the relationship there, but I actually don't even know if David Beckham's run the team. It could be Victoria. Who even knows? Will they get back on track this week? That's what I'm looking forward to seeing. But that's those 3 games. That's what I'm watching today. But the question is, what is my MLS bet? Over bet of the week. And Ian, I think we found going contrarian the past couple weeks has not really been the right strategy. So, guess what I'm doing? I am going to the Mecca of goals in the MLS. That's right, Yankee Stadium. We're going to see NY City FC and FC Dallas, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. I love the price. Over 2.5, you're getting that plus 115. It's an underdog bet. It's a little contrarian. At home this season, New York City FC and its opponents are averaging 2.8 goals per game, and the over has hit in 3 of their last 5 matches at home. And every single time that these two teams have played in Yankee Stadium in the history of both these two teams being in the league, this total has hit. In fact, these two teams average about 5 goals per game in Yankee Stadium. So I'm loving the short field. I think this plus 115 is an easy winner. And trust me, Ian, this one tonight goes over 2.5.
Hey, I thought you were going to do I was really thinking you were going to say, I'm looking at this game. I think there's going to be over 1 corner in the game.
Minus 1,000 odds. Put your mortgage payment on it.
Oh.
All right,
that
finishes up our 4 best bets. But Ian, we're gonna hit one of these. What do you got in your £1 parlay this week?
Let's go for the parlay on a live stream that brings you references about Joey Chestnuts and Victoria Beckham. What other soccer-based live stream is doing that this weekend? Nobody. That's who. But yeah, so £1 parlay, it is just for fun, and I cannot stress that enough, because usually I fall flat on my face with this. If you've got a little bit of spare beer money or pizza money, throw it on this one. I take 1 from the Premier League, 1 from the Championship, 1 from League 1, 1 from League 2 in England, and try and give you some value. It is a good bet this weekend. It starts with Liverpool beating Forest, which is the absolute banker, which if that doesn't happen, then
we're done.
I think I'm just going to quit. So the odds on that one are shocking. So the other ones are a bit weird and wild. So I've gone for Swansea away at Norwich. I think Norwich are in really poor form and Swansea are looking pretty good. So that's what I've gone for that one. Fleetwood at home to NK Dons. And for nothing else, Oxford United need this result. Really need Fleetwood to get a win in that one. And I've gone for Hartlepool away at Crawley in League 2. Hartlepool need to win to keep their relegation hopes alive, to try and stay in League 2. They dropped out. They've dropped out into the conference before. They come back into the league. This would be a disaster for Hartlepool if they did go down again. So they need to win this game. It's very good value, and as I said, I can't stress enough. Don't put a huge amount of money on it.
Yeah, plus 2,200, 22 to 1. So yeah, $1 there would definitely get you some pizza. But before we sign off, Ian, I've seen your shirt. I've been blinded by your shirt. But the Oxford United team, if I'm not mistaken, it's been 15 straight weeks without a win.
I think it's crept up even more now after that draw on midweek, Matt. I think it's up to 16 now, but it's it's been really horrible. It's been a horrible second half of this season. If you think about, there's a couple of things really that just, that's a third of the season where we haven't won a game. So bad. I don't think I've ever experienced anything like that. I doubt that'll ever happen again, maybe in my lifetime of supporting Oxford United, or I hope it doesn't. Secondly, as well, it shows you kind of how crap League One is, that we haven't won a game for 16 games and we're not in the relegation zone. Like, we've only picked up 6 points in that time. So the standard's not been great, but we're hanging on to our League One status by a thread. It was disappointing against Bolton. I don't think refereeing decisions necessarily went our way. I think we'll agree to disagree on that one. But much improved performance from Oxford United against Portsmouth in midweek. Got a draw. Should have won the game, really. Created a load of chances. Today's a really difficult one away at Barnsley. Not really expecting to get much out of that. But if Oxford approach these final 4 games with the same effort and intent that they approached the last one, it still gives me hope that we can survive in League One.
Well, this week, Ian, Wickham cannot be your savior and
No.
continue beating teams below you. They're actually playing Lincoln at home, which is going to be a loss for them. But yeah, I hope Oxford stays up. But at the same time, for your viewership, I think you might want to be in the same league as Wrexham. Who knows?
Yeah, that would be good for one video, and then when we play the likes of when we play a lot of the other, there's a lot of people. Oxford haven't had a relegation for something like for a long time. It's coming on like 17, 18 years since we've actually been relegated. So there's a lot of fans that have never experienced it. So there's a lot of fans that talking as if it's like the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, it's not. We've had relegations before. It'd be annoying. It's not the end of the world. We've got our main rivals are Swindon. They're in the league below, so at least we'd get to play them. And it would be shit, but we'll roll with the punches.
Yeah, and just after that, you could be in the National League, just like this show.
I've already experienced that. I don't want to ever go back there again.
All right, that's it for Edging a Win. It's been a very small viewership today, but hey, we'll be back next week. And we will love to see you then. So, for Ian, myself, have a great weekend, and we will see you next week at 9 a.m.